What's going on, Whisper Nation? Thanks for joining us this Monday, August 2nd for another mock draft with the Fantasy Whispers. This time we got a 12-team full-point PPR, one quarterback, one tight end, three wide receivers, two running backs. Let's get it going.
Right here.
Johnny Game Time Hicks, Big Travie. What's going on, gentlemen?
What up? What's going on? Definitely think Austin or Big Travis was right. I think that intro is now coming in louder. I have no idea why. But
from the audio issues we were experiencing earlier before the show?
I don't know. It's been like lately that intro clip has been just way louder. And then Whisper Nation, let us know if our mic settings are fine. If you could hear us loud and clear. I know we had a couple of issues on our last live where my mic was turned way down, but I think we should be good. But yeah,
we were just overly excited, and the internet's excited to be here with us, and it's just cranking it up like that, and that would make complete sense because I know how excited we are for this mock draft along with you, Whisper Nation, and we got a couple of spots left in our mock draft room here on Sleeper. We just dropped those on Twitter, so if you're not following me on Twitter, make sure you're doing that at TF Whispers, so that you can catch these live links coming your way. We've got the 7 and 8 spots still available. Mortgage Baby just jumped in the 3. John Credit here. What's up, John? Jumped in the 5. So we got just 2 more spots here. We'll wait about another 30 seconds before we get this one here started. But this is an exciting mock draft. I got to say, Johnny, I'm looking forward to the news that's come out. We've got actual football, close to actual football that's happening. How do you think that's going to impact these mock drafts now?
Oh, it's going to affect them quite a bit. We've got, some bigger injury news, and we also have a little bit more clarity on some of these guys. You got the Carson Wentz and injury info.
Yeah.
5 to 12 weeks. That's not a big span of time missed, as a forecast there. And then we've also got, the Devonta Smith information with him being out a couple of weeks with the MCL sprain. So that should affect his ADP a little bit. We know more clarity on the Michael Thomas and how long he's going to be out. So, there should be quite the change up here. We also know that Sleeper sent out an update this week or this weekend, saying that they've updated the ADPs. So really looking forward to seeing how things shake up since, just the mock draft marathon just a week ago when we were mocking like crazy.
I know some of those big names, some of those big adjustments, updates, look no further than Green Bay, Wisconsin, Travis, to have number 12 back in the building. I see that fresh Adams jersey over your right shoulder over there. Seems like that Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams ADP is going to stay true or climb up a little bit higher.
Yeah, we were getting massive discounts on best ball drafts or drafts if we, I don't know if anybody's actually drafting their redraft or managed leagues in July. But if they were getting massive discounts on Aaron Rodgers, on Devontae Adams, and Aaron Jones, and that is not going to happen anymore because basically he's back in the building and he's back with a little bit, I don't know, call it whatever it is, fabricated motivation, but that's what this guy does, and now he's got even more of it this year. Came in hot with his press conference, and we'll see what happens this year. Yeah, the voice is back, Calvin. Thanks for pointing that out. It's made a full recovery, and we are glad to be loud and clear, as Eric says, not in whisper mode. But we're the Fantasy Whispers. It doesn't mean I need to whisper when we're talking here.
No, it just hits you like a whisper. It's just like right in your deep ear holes right there. Actually,
exactly.
Even you guys on the mock draft marathon last week educated me on the origins of the Fantasy Whispers name, and that was a great story. If you didn't catch the mock draft marathon, Whisper Nation, we had 24 live hours, continuous mock drafting. We did 25 mock drafts in a 24-hour run, bringing on a ton of incredible analysts, industry professionals, people involved in the fantasy football community coming on, sharing their takes. And all of those live streams are broken up into 4 sections because it only allowed us to stream 6 hours at a time via YouTube. We have 4 live streams that are now available. You can rewatch them with some of the best in the business, including Yahoo's lead fantasy analyst, Liz Loza, NFL.com's lead analyst, Adam Rank. We had former head coach of the Browns and the Raiders, Hugh Jackson, on, and then a ton of other great analysts and platform hosts, Club FFL, a lot of the boys from, just go ahead, please. I'm leaving some folks out. Dave was incredible. Moody was incredible. There were so many great voices. Do yourself a favor, go check out the mock draft, and we're going to have more videos of that coming out here, I know, pretty soon as we break up some of those coming up. I know Johnny's working on those ones, and we're working on filling up this entire draft room. So if you're interested in the 3 spot, we'll hold on here for about 30 more seconds until we get our mock draft here up and running. So if you want to mock draft alongside us for the next hour, go ahead, grab that 3 spot. You can find the link on Twitter.
Yeah, Zuber saying, "Oh,
and we did it. Let's go.
We did it. Let's go.
All right.
Hitting that start mock draft, baby.
Let's get this one started. So we are now live drafting here. It's a 12-team full point PPR, non-super flex though. So you can only start one quarterback. Keep that in mind, Whisper Nation, as we get this one off and running. Big Travie, any shakeups at the top of the draft? I know we've had a lot of news that's come in. Some things we'll discuss. Eagles camp, Packers camp, a lot of other things at the skill positions across the league. But does any of that affect the top of the draft right now, in your opinion?
Well, there was an interesting Twitter debate. Johnny and I got tagged in just asking who the number 3 was. And I actually think with the Michael Thomas news, regardless of quarterback, you're looking at Kamara really solidifying himself as the number 3 here, given that he is, got such a huge chance to be that main vein of his offense. So I think that's one of the things. And then I think the more we get closer to the year, we get Dak's clarity on his injury, and the line actually stays pretty healthy for Dallas. You'll see Ezekiel Elliott market kind of adjust there and get what it needs to do there. But I'm gonna go a little wild here.
Want to give a shout out here to a Stormtrooper, new member of the Whispers, first time at Lives I Mock. Love it. He's a big Johnny fan. So swing the leg in this mock, Johnny. I love for that. And welcome. This is awesome. It's great to have you, along with other great friends of the show, Plugged In with Jay. We were just talking here about some of the incredible guest hosting performances and folks joining us on the mock draft marathon. Jay, second to none. I mean, his insights, the way he carries his narratives and brings forward. Go ahead and follow Jay with the Plugged In with Jay here. I'm on his YouTube channel, on his Twitter. It's fantastic stuff. And he's who connected us with Hugh Jackson, which was such an incredible interview to have there. And just to be said, and while you're at it, all checking those ones out, if you haven't liked and subscribed to the content we got coming your way and you like what you're hearing, go ahead and hit that little button. It would do us a great service, and we help to keep bringing you all this great Whisper Nation news. Johnny, bringing it back here, though, there's been a lot of shakeups. Saquon Barkley we had some news coming out about him, about he's progressing, but it doesn't sound enthusiastically, at least. How is this news that you've heard, both with Saquon Barkley and some of these other players, impacted your round 1 outlook?
I'm starting to fade Saquon a little bit more. I have him as a top 10 running back right now. However, I might be changing that a little bit. And moving them slightly down because of this information. It's making me really concerned based on all of the info coming out and saying, oh, he's on pace originally. And then now it's like, oh, well, I'm not going to push it. They brought in some other running backs. All this is, leading me, down the exo facto connect the dotso here. And with that, I would be moving Saquon down a little bit. I would take Jonathan Taylor, Ezekiel Elliott, both of those guys, especially with the Carson Wentz news for Jonathan Taylor. I think they will run it a little bit more. We'll see what kind of running backs, or excuse me, what kind of. Sorry, let me make a pick here.
15.
Yeah, I was like, they should be running the ball a little bit more unless they bring in another quarterback. That's a caliber. Right now, they signed Hundley, which, former Cardinals backup. I thought he was actually pretty decent when I saw him come in and play, but I don't think that he could truly carry a load for them. But he can turn around and hand the ball off to Jonathan Taylor and Marlon Mack. So I do think that his value is relatively the same.
Johnny, you brought up an interesting point right here, and it mainly actually came up from when you were caught in that moment of, I got to make my pick really quick right here. And we're getting to that point in the season. We're in August now, right, boys? And actual drafts are beginning to be scheduled. People are selecting what point in their draft they actually want to draft at. That's how our League of Record works. We do a March Madness competition, and if you come in first, you're not necessarily the number one overall pick. You pick where you want to go in the draft. So the number one overall pick could say, I want the 3 spot, or I want the 12 spot, I want the 1 spot, whatever it ends up being. And I'd say this, we teach the things we need to learn ourselves. And one of the things that I would advise everybody to do as your leagues are coming online is to do yourself a favor and write out your 1 through 36 picks. Just write out all of who those picks are through the first 3 rounds, presuming it's a 3 or a 12 team league, because you're going to have guys you like. But when it comes down to that hair-splitting decision, you're going to want to do that thinking ahead of time. And you can, it really doesn't take that much work. Go ahead and put picks 1 through 36 all the way in there. And what it'll also help you do is determine where your tiers really break at. Because Johnny was just talking about, Saquon Barkley's getting faded a little bit in his rankings. Jonathan Taylor, Ezekiel Elliott, he might have them ahead. But maybe on that backside, there's another tier that ends up falling off. So if you can build out exactly where your tiers are at, and you're saying, look, maybe I like Jonathan Taylor a little bit more than Ezekiel Elliott, but they're really in the same tier, but you can move to the backside of that, grab whichever one's available, and then set yourself up to grab the gem you see there in the second round. So that's my plug there for a way to get your gems and not be panicked when you're actually on the clock, because I know we're actually getting ready to make our selections on this one. Travis, I saw you there, and your selections, Davante Adams and Najee Harris. Was that an easy selection for you? Do you kind of have your first 2 rounds queued up, or how are you approaching the early leg of the draft?
I'm messing around with some strategy here. I wanted to see, I was listening to some people over at NBC Sports Edge talking about what to do once you're out of the big 3 at the top. And they, especially in PPR, maybe it's good to just pivot, get one of the big wide receivers, either Davante or Tyreek Hill. So I wanted to see what that build would look like. And Najee Harris just seems like a really safe bet right now to get around 300 touches. And his receiving ability is really nice. This team is going to run a whole lot more, and it just looks like he's kind of worked his way up into this, solidified focal point of that offense. And so I'm not saying it's exactly easy. I think I'd rather have a guy like, Antonio Gibson, Joe Mixon, or Eckler here. They did not fall that far. They've basically kind of crept up into the first round or back of the first now. And so Najee Harris was just kind of the next one in that tier.
This is a little bit of this is an evolution, isn't it, Travi? I remember not too long ago, it was Johnny and Travis. You two were having a pretty significant debate on the early round viability of Najee here. And I think this is an update now for you, Travis. Am I right on that?
Yeah, I mean, new information comes in, some things I'm seeing in camp, some beat writing, and just the way that this offense is set up. He is one of the more foolproof plans in the offense. Whether they want to run more and they do it, or whether they want to run more and can't, he should be able to catch passes out of the backfield. And there's been nothing but great reviews, and not just about what he does on the field, but when the whistle blows and practice is over, this guy is sticking around, putting in the time and really trying to be a leader on this team as a rookie. And so those are the kind of things I gravitate towards and like to see.
I just want to say welcome aboard, Travis. Welcome aboard the bandwagon. It's great to have you. I'm glad I saved the seats for you because it's fun.
Yep. You're the only one who's ever liked Najee Harris.
Only.
Between the two of you, he was. I'll give him that one, at least on that plug over on that side. But Travis, who are you thinking now on this backside, filling up with your elite wide receiver?
I'm gonna go with another person that I think that has a great chance to be a bell cow back here. If I can't take a back in the first round because I've tried a new strategy in going Davante Adams, then I want to try and solidify those backs before I start to hammer wide receiver again in the next few rounds. And Montgomery was sitting there. I wanted CEH, but obviously did not make it all the way around. And then Montgomery was my second one in that tier. That's why I really want to speak to what Austin was saying, like building out those first 36 picks, those tiers, that breakdown for your first 3 rounds. It's very important that you grade guys within the same round, because you're just not going to be able to you're not going to be able to get every single guy you want. It's just that's the facts of life when you're drafting. So you're going to have to make guys fit, basically a projection, a range of outcomes for that points, barrier that you have. So if you think CH can hit that, find some other guys that can hit that as well, that ceiling, and make that part of your tier so that when CH inevitably gets snagged from you, you're able to kind of pivot.
You heard it. If you think you can hit that, pick him up. And if you're hitting with that point, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button. You like that segue into that one, Johnny? I knew you'd be thinking of that.
Yeah, that was
best in the
good.
biz.
Yeah, best in the
If you
business right there.
if you're picking up what we're putting down, and that like and subscribe button isn't too far away, go ahead and click it. If you change your mind, you can unclick it later. It just really allows us to continue doing what we love so much doing. And Whisper Nation, though, let us know, where are you feeling about Najee Harris right now? For me, I don't know how I could take Najee Harris over David Montgomery. I am like, David Montgomery is already done. He's a top 5 running back coming into this season as he finished last year. Similar in age, time in the system. I don't know. Maybe it's just a controversial take because
it's just like there's nobody else on the Steelers roster that strikes fear when we're only 2 years removed from top 30 PPR numbers from Tariq Cohen. And that's the thing. Tariq Cohen really is the fear factor for David Montgomery right now. So I think that's the only knock on it. But why get mad about getting one or the other? Get them both.
And that fear factor, I know Johnny just had CeeDee Lamb, his boy, taken, and he's fuming about it. I could see him shaking that head in disgust.
Yeah, Donnie over here. I was like, okay, I was literally looking at the wide receivers, and there's a lot of them. I mean, I'll be able to get someone good still, but I am, seeing all these hype things on CD. I was already a big fan of CD. Got my CeeDee Lamb shirt on today, repping, and I definitely thought, like, okay, all these wide receivers, there's no way he's gonna grab CeeDee Lamb on this.
He grabbed your boy.
And
then he asked you about it, and then he hits you with the upside down smiley face.
Man.
I think we might have missed Jay's departure, but I just wanted to give him a shout out here. Hope to get with work with y'all more soon. Had a blast doing the mock draft marathon. Oh boy, Jay, so did we. We will have you on the show anytime. Whisper Nation, follow this man's content. It's not just accurate and insightful. It's a lot of fun. There's a lot of different voices and personalities in this world. Jay is top of our list, and I think he will be the top of yours too. So go ahead, do yourself a favor and check him out. But everybody else in here in Whisper Nation, great to have you with us. Big Sam 38, Bro Cow 38. You guys have the same numbers. I wonder if y'all are related. Turn off Lakeside, Usman 2320, John Credit. What's up, man? Mortgage Baby, Thomas Egley, Josh here, Jay Blizzy. What's up, man? Champion over there in the 8-9 spot. Easy Daddy, always a pleasure to have you. And Donflict in the 12. Great to have you along. And everybody else watching on YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, Facebook, great to have you alongside of us. It's the best part of our Monday. So welcome to the show. Hope to see you stick around for this time and next time.
I just want to bring it. So Stormtrooper asked, do I regret not getting Lamb or Murray? And the thing is that I knew I had to I clearly wasn't going to get one of my guys, because I know that if I passed on Kyler Murray, I know that Donnie would have taken him because he's also a big Kyler Murray fan. Boomer Sooners over here. And so it looked like I wasn't going to get one of them. So I'd rather have Kyler over CD in this mock, but I am a little frustrated that I wasn't able to get both of my guys.
Let's talk about CeeDee Lamb actually just a little bit here, break it down, not to take up the entire show with CeeDee Lamb, but it's one of the hottest names in fantasy football. It's a sexy pick coming out of college. Jerry Jones sure as heck loved him, picked him up despite having 2 wide receiver 1 talents in Gallup and Cooper on the squad, 2 talents who are still with the team. The latter of those, Michael Gallup, the head coach Mike McCarthy said was a wide receiver 1 last year. Certainly didn't put up wide receiver 1 numbers, but that's not what he was talking about. He was talking about the capabilities and possibilities of Michael Gallup were that good. He's still young. He's still developing. Amari Cooper's never had under 1,000 yards in a season he's really played. He's the number 1 over there too. We know that defense in Dallas is atrocious, or it was last year. Dak is supposed to be the one to overcome all of this deflated defense, which is, in fantasy wise, a good thing for you, right, Trav? He's going to keep you going, keep you motivated, have to keep throwing downfield because you're down by 16 points. But that's still Michael Gallup and Amari Cooper, wide receiver one talent on the roster with more experience than CeeDee Lamb, who's the new hotness, but is got some competition ahead of him. Is CeeDee Lamb about to just break through that big Travie and say, nah, Amari, nah, Michael, like this is my team now? Or are we just excited by the potential of CeeDee Lamb and maybe a year early?
Yeah, this one's tough, right? Because there's a lot of things that could factor into CeeDee Lamb's ADP that would make him unappealing. One is hard knocks. Two is the fact that Amari Cooper is now dealing with a foot injury, and we see what foot injuries have done to wide receivers. And Jerry Jones's comment on that was, oh, maybe sometime in August. Okay. Well, we need to maybe know that for fantasy football purposes since we're drafting in August. I think that maybe it's not as big of a deal. But we've just seen what Dak Prescott has done for Amari Cooper's career. So to just discount Amari Cooper and Dak's chemistry is a fool's errand. But there is no doubting that CeeDee Lamb is a first-round talent, prolific talent, and is on a team that is going to throw a ton. So for me, it is Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb. And when I started this offseason, it was Amari Cooper before CeeDee Lamb. But now, given the foot injury and how that thing's progressing, and just the murkiness of that, I don't mind taking CeeDee Lamb above Amari Cooper at this point. And that
Johnny,
could change with new information.
I have flip-flopped them in my rankings. I have put CeeDee Lamb above Amari Cooper now because of the very foot injury, because of him missing time. The big thing I want to note here is, sure, this year, I mean, once Cooper comes back, that chemistry is there. I don't think you need a grip of time to get that chemistry going. But here's the interesting thing. Amari's on his last year of his contract. What CeeDee Lamb is showing right now, I get it, it's practice. I get it. It is against the Cowboys, who we don't, think has a good defense. But I mean, the catches he's making are very, very good. And he's really showing that, hey, I'm ready to take that step to be your alpha number one. And I think that the longer Amari, stays out, the longer we see more and more tape of CeeDee Lamb, really emerging as this alpha, I think the less likely it is that Dallas brings back Amari next year. So to your point, Austin, are we a year too early on CD? Potentially, right? Because we are starting to get up there right now. There are certain factors that might not be similar, compared to the regular season. But I will say that in the future, if you're in a keeper league or whatnot, I think CD is pretty much a solid pick there, because moving into next year, I do see CeeDee Lamb being that number one alpha. And if he is, what we're talking about, I think he'll be way more consistent than Amari. And I think he has better hands than Amari too. So
good take, good points on that one. If you agree with what Johnny's saying right now, go ahead and hit that like button, hit that subscribe button to keep those insights flowing into your brain throughout the rest of the regular season. Walter Reed chimes in here on the CeeDee Lamb Dallas situation. As long as he plays the slot, especially now with Dak and that shoulder injury. And I'll just say on this, shoulder injuries are things that you can play through, but it might take your deep ball down 10%, which would have an enormous impact. Keep an eye out for that. And as we've learned from Tom Brady's news coming out recently that he was playing the entire season on a torn MCL, you don't always hear everything that's going on. So these injuries that come out, just temper expectations, know that nobody's 100%. And as they say, some guys are race cars, in the sense of a race car is real fast when all the bolts are tight, but when one little thing goes off, it's in the garage then. So keep an eye on that when you are making your selections here. And Big Travie, speaking of selections, you went ahead and took TJ Hawkinson there in the 5, ahead of Mark Andrews, ahead of Kyle Pitts, 4th tight end off the board. I love that selection right there. Do you think, though, that TJ Hawkinson is going to be one of Jared Goff's main weapons coming in this year?
Yeah, everything coming out of beat writers is just lining up with what we thought. So when we started the offseason, it's like, man, there's that cupboard is dry now. There's not a lot of weapons in Detroit. We know that Jared Goff has used his tight ends fine in the past, And now we know from beat writers and coaches that TJ Hawkinson's the best player on the field, basically, for Detroit. And so if that's the case, everything is converging into TJ Hawkinson being the main weapon, the main vein, maybe outside of DeAndre Swift from game to game. But TJ Hawkinson is probably going to be how this team moves the ball. And now, so I don't think a ton of touchdown upside might be there for TJ just because of the nature of this offense. But target-wise in a PPR format, this guy is going to eat. And so TJ Hawkinson firmly inside our top 5 based on the rankings that Johnny puts together from the draft kit, which you can get at thefantasywhispers.com. But TJ Hawkinson just is poised to eat this year, and I'm really excited to have him on roster.
I love the pickup there, and I think TJ Hawkinson is perfectly primed for a breakout year. Folks don't realize the man is just 24 years old, was a first-round selection 2 years ago, and last year had 723 yards on 101 targets. I think he's going to have even more. He's been hurt a lot, but he's played through that. He's 6'5", 250. I think that he's going to be the new Darren Waller, if you will, coming in this year. I think he's shown every reason to think that's going to happen. His ADP is starting to get to where you're going to need to have that happen, but I'm feeling pretty good about TJ coming in this year right now. And I think that's a good conversation point. Are there any, as ADP keeps shifting, I want to do something here moving forward through the end of our mock drafts of like taking a little bit more analysis of how the ADPs rise and fall. But Johnny, I wanted to bring the question back to you, who you took Myles Gaskin there in the 6th round. We've been talking a lot about running backs. We always will. They're so rare. They're so impactful, of course. But Josh Jacobs, Darrell Henderson, and Myles Gaskin had been pretty close. Kareem Hunt was also in that category. I'm starting to see some separation now. I'm seeing Josh Jacobs went ahead in the 4th round, Henderson right behind him there, and then Gaskin after Kareem Hunt. Edmonds right in that camp too. Do you think this is where we're going to continue to see this trend? Is Jacobs, was he slept on a little bit, now he's climbing up? Or is that too high right now as far as you're estimating? Is Gaskin being slept on? Is he somebody that we should really be targeting more from a bell cow running back slot? How are you kind of shaking out that Josh Jacobs, Darrell Henderson, Myles Gaskin, Kareem Hunt, Chase Edmonds, and even Miles Sanders would be the last name I'd add into that, Johnny?
Yeah, so Jacobs ADP is now starting to correct itself. I do think it's still a little overcorrect. I think like the 5th or 6th round, like he should be going with these guys. I'm not saying he shouldn't, but I would tend to have, I can pull up my exact rankings on Josh Jacobs. And yeah, so I have him as RB23. So I still have a lot of the guys that were taken after him above him. Specifically, like Myles Gaskin, I do think a lot of people are sleeping on him. We do know that when he was in Miami, or last year when he was healthy, he was the guy. Miami gave it to one running back. Now they did bring in Malcolm Brown, who is more of like a pass blocker specialist. He's really good at that. He can get the dump off. So maybe Myles Gaskin gets a little bit of a regression on touches. But again, his value, the reason why it is what it is, one, he's not a big name guy, right? He was like a 7th rounder or unrestricted free agent that they brought in after the draft. So there's not significant value. A lot of people don't trust in those guys quite yet. They like to see it a little bit more. So yes, he is a little bit of a gamble, but I do have him as a top 15 running back this year. So I do think people are sleeping on him a little bit more. Like, for example, taking Kareem Hunt before a guy like Gaskin. Now I understand and I get that Kareem Hunt, his name, he is a very talented running back, but his touches are very limited. And you also are kind of banking on Nick Chubb having to go down to really get that full potential, when right out of the gate, I know that Gaskin is going to have his full potential. And then it works out for me that if Gaskin, ends up, not being who I think he is, and I need to drop him, I'm going to more so do that. Whereas Kareem Hunt, I'm continuing to hold on because I'm like, well, the whole reason I drafted him was because I'm hoping that Nick Chubb goes down, because then I could potentially have an RB1 upside guy. And so I wouldn't play that way. But again, if someone needs that, like, I understand why Jay Blizzy took a guy like Kareem Hunt, because he's pairing him with Zeke Elliott. That was his RB anchor. So he's only looking for plug and play RB2s. So it all depends on strategy. But yeah, for me, I have some of the, like, I have Henderson a little bit up, a little bit higher than most people do. and things like that. But again, when you're in these rounds, we encourage you, go for the guys that you like to watch, go for the guys that you feel like have the highest potential upside, and as well as a solid floor, because once again, the draft capital isn't to where if you miss on these guys, you're buried. Whereas in like the first 3 rounds, if you miss on a draft pick there, you might be, like Tony Pollard there, that might be a little high.
I just got to ask, so to bring other guys into this conversation here while Johnny's making his selection there on Gaskin. I look at Gaskin, I say easy come, easy go. And Gaskin was a guy who popped up out of nowhere. We thought it was Breda. We thought it was Jordan Howard. Then it was Gaskin. Then it was Salvin Ahmed. Then there was other players coming in, coming out. I don't think Gaskin's shown enough to be the guy in Miami. I think they would love to have a more explosive, more impactful running back take the touches away from Gaskin. They just don't have that running back there yet. But in terms of a year of life happening, I'm not surprised if any one of those running backs, could be Brown, could be Dokes, their 6th round selection, ends up taking that role from Gaskin, a guy who's like never had more than 700 yards in a season. I look at guys like Mostert, I look at guys like James Robinson, I even look at coin tosses like Ronald Jones, who's splitting the backfield with Leonard Fournette, even Damien Harris. Like, I look at these guys as being slightly more established names with more upside from an opportunity perspective and an offensive perspective. I'm just.
What's the difference between Gaskin and Robinson?
The difference between Gaskin and Robinson is that Robinson got the role the entire season and he was more efficient with the opportunities that he had.
Yeah, I think talent would be there for Robinson, like effectiveness, efficiency would all tilt towards Robinson. I would say Gaskin's on par, and like Gaskin is like James Robinson light, in my opinion. But like James Robinson was a better runner than, like, you can look at all the stats, like, right, he was like advanced metrics, he was a better runner last year than Myles Gaskin.
Well, I mean, to a couple of case in points here, right? James Robinson was running behind a better offensive line. If you look statistically, actually, Gaskin had one of the best statistical, because of how bad his offensive line was and how often he was getting hit. He was actually considered one of the higher valued RBs last year. And then you're talking about, James Robinson doesn't have high draft capital either. He was a late round guy. I'll go with the guy on the cover. It's a little high here for Laviska, but we'll see. And the other thing I'll say is that you talk about bringing in a guy. Well, like, Jacksonville just brought in a number 1 pick running back, and
who they want to play,
and the Dolphins,
play at the scat back spot, and like,
sure,
I'm just,
right.
I know you selected Gaskin, so you're stoked on him, and you got reasons to pick him, but he's just not an overly impressive back. He hasn't done a lot to earn a lot of time. They've got a lot of people in the running back room, and we don't know what this offense is totally about. We're getting in new schemes. We're getting Tua is going to have the reins the entire season. And I'm just saying that there's just some question marks, and I'm not sold on his upside from that perspective. I'm wondering if someone like Damien Harris has more upside. Like, Travis, you picked Damien Harris here, who we know has a ton of other competition from the running back room involved. They drafted a rookie. Sony Michel, I think, is still on board. They're going to pull up Jonah Gray from retirement. Who knows? We know that Damien Harris did play well with the opportunities he had, but can you ever rely on those opportunities from Belichick? And I know I just asked this question as you're about to make a pick.
Oh, I've already got the pick queued up. Yeah, I mean, Damien Harris is a guy that I just have warmed on. I wanted to get ahead of the ADP hype here, so just took him around earlier than ADP because he's going off usually in the 8th or 9th round. And it just, look, we can say it every year that there's Bellatrix, but at some point when they go and get 2 tight ends and they trade for a lineman and they have Cam Newton or even a rookie, if they go on from Cam Newton, they go to a rookie, everything spells bully ball. Everything spells conservative style of running. And that means that if somebody were to be good enough, which we saw in spurts last year I want to give Johnny and Austin credit on this. They saw a lot in Damien Harris before I even saw a lot in Damien Harris. Part of that is exposure to him last year in fantasy, but Harris was a good runner. We talk about advanced metrics. He was a good runner when he got the volume, and they know that in camp. It's coming out in camp, and Sony Michel could be a cut candidate right now. That's what all the whispers are saying right now. They got a guy in Ramondre Stevenson who's a rookie. We know Bill takes a while to, trust rookies. So I really think Damien Harris has a clearer path to a bunch of volume than people want to really admit. And his ADP is starting to reflect that because he's climbing. But that's just where I'm at with Damien. I think he's just a good bet in these rounds to like go snag you a guy that could end up being an RB2 with RB1 upside from week to week.
Yeah, that was mostly, I appreciate the kudos that you handed out, but that was a big Austin one. He really talked me into Harris last year. He was like, hey, you got to watch this guy. And sure enough, yeah, I liked what I saw.
The reason why I like Harris is because we just didn't know. And it was actually like the mystery box. The mystery box price was deflated. Usually the mystery box has a premium price on it, right? It's like, oh, this rookie could be really good, or this guy in this new system could be just what he's been waiting for. But on this side with Damien Harris, it was like a guy they took and, in the first 3 rounds, and they basically redshirted him because they felt like it, and it's the Patriots, so predictions to trash. And they just were like, we don't need to start him. We don't need to show you. We're just gonna bench him, essentially. And they did. But it's like this guy was still drafted relatively early, and the rest of the dudes on the roster, I just don't know. And that's a little bit where the same thought with like Gaskins come up, or Ronald Jones and Leonard Fournette, or even James Robinson. It's like, what don't we know? And some of these guys might be down a little bit, but actually have more to provide than they've shown. I think Darrell Henderson could be a great candidate like that, who the main critique I see coming on Darrell Henderson is his durability. But it's like, let's go ahead and not try to predict injuries. He's not trying to get hurt. I know Sean McVay would love for Henderson to not get hurt. If he can go ahead and play a full season and not get hurt, like you're looking at a guy with tremendous upside.
It's funny on Henderson, like if the knock is durability, he's literally the understudy from a guy who got hurt. Like why are we trying to discount Henderson for durability when the guy he's replacing just got hurt? So
and he's been hurt twice. He was hurt because he missed a bunch of time last year.
And the reason we like Henderson is because when Akers got hurt, Henderson balled out. So like I think this is just we're gonna see, like, it's just that people loved Akers so much. And there was already a debate coming into last year, Akers v. Henderson, right? Because Henderson was drafted with capital the year before. Akers was drafted with capital last year. And so it's like, oh my God, if you have a guy, you've got a horse in the race, you better just besmirch the guy that comes in. If Henderson comes in, you can't come back on that take. No, Austin, you say this all the time. Your outlook, your opinion, it changes with new information. New information is here. Cam Akers is hurt. We've got to really approach this backfield differently now. And the approach is Darrell Henderson has shown us albeit in a small sample size, that he's good, but he's also shown us that, he can carry the load if they give it to him. And is the leash going to be short? Yeah, but you don't have to pay an Akers price for it.
Great take on this one. Johnny, I want to ask you, because it's still bothering me on this. Where are we breaking down as of now? And as Travis said, new information will change our outlook. But where do you currently sit right now in the Tampa Bay backfield? Ronald Jones, Leonard Fournette, Giovanni Bernard is there. I think God, apologies for whom said this on the mock draft marathon, but Giovanni Bernard is not going to be fantasy relevant, but he will have a fantasy impact. And that might be an impact. Who was it?
I think Hugh Jackson was talking about it because he used to.
Hugh Jackson, big fan of Gio, worked with him back in Cincinnati, and talking about the relevancy Gio's going to have from a football perspective, which is going to make an impact there on the running back productivity from a fantasy perspective. Leonard Fournette was just taken, Johnny. Ronald Jones was taken 2 rounds plus 5 picks later or earlier. Where do you stack Ronald Jones and Leonard Fournette up right now?
So there has been a lot of good news coming out about Ronald Jones over at training camp. I do actually think Giovanni will be used more than people think. And, as far as the pass catching goes, because Tom Brady does like to spread that out and get a running back who is really good at pass catching. And we brought it up many a times on this show that, like, Uncle Lenny was not getting it done. There were a lot of dump offs that he missed, and it was very frustrating for Tom. We know that Ronald Jones doesn't have very good hands. Yeah, I understand he's staying after practice to try to catch more, but we've seen this time and time again from guys that have stone hands. They work on this, and it doesn't always translate to game action. And so I do think that you look at this offense, and they do give that third down back, that scat back, a decent portion of the target percentage. They've gotten roughly about 10% over the last couple of years in Tampa Bay. And then you also look at, what James White did. So I do actually think there'll be some weeks where, Gio can come in and be, a plug and play flex play for you, because that's, what he does. We've seen him also carry the load if he needed to when Joe Mixon went down, and he was a solid, RB2 for you. So I do think it muddies the waters a little bit. I do think that it's going to split time between Uncle Lenny and Rojo. I think it's going to be a little frustrating. I'm starting to fade this background in general. But again, if you are going with the upside down, we do know that, Uncle Lenny does have that monster touchdown upside, or Rojo. So I think if you are going to grab this backfield, I would at least grab those two and take them and just say, okay, I'm going to let the dice roll on whatever guy gets that main workload. I know
he's graduated from Uncle Lenny, dude. He's not Uncle Lenny. He's Lombardi Lenny now.
Lombardi Lenny.
We have to come correct when we talk about Lenny now.
Okay.
Uncle Lombardi Lenny.
Uncle Lombardi Lenny. That's good.
Uncle Lombardi. We got some people talking here about Gio, Walter Reed coming in Gio and PPR. We all forgot what James White was to Brady in New England. No, I don't think we did, but we just haven't seen Gio and Tom do it yet.
Well,
so also, I'm not surprised if it happens.
We don't need to spend a bunch of time. Like, Gio's a fine end of draft pick if you want to see what happens. Like, you'll find out, I think, quickly enough what the role is. But, like, did we forget that somebody was the hammer when James White was the pass catcher in New England? And they're going to need the hammer. Like, it's not like I'm okay if they want to give Gio all of the passing down work. They clearly want to do that because they led the league in drops last year from the running back position.
Gross.
But that's okay. Like, go and let one of these two. That's the question. Let one of Leonard Fournette or Ronald Jones be the touchdown guy, be the hammer, be the grinder. And that is going to be valuable on this team, because this team is going to continue to move the ball all over the field. So that's what I think is important. And so, to Johnny's point, like, maybe you fade on Ronald Jones because now you're having to take him 2 rounds ahead because of the hype that's been coming out. And maybe you end up going with a guy like Leonard Fournette because he's the established and his nickname's better.
I love it. I love this comment. This is so great. Way to go, Calvin. Everyone's tank gets a refill boost when they're handpicked by Brady. Absolutely true. We've seen this time and time again.
Get touched.
Hey, I know. Hey, I'll tell you right now, if Tom Brady came, if Tom Brady came on this mock draft marathon, you best believe we're getting a little boost to our status here because he comes on here.
I want to ask now, Travi, you just took Joe Burrow there. No issue with the selection over the aforementioned Tom Brady. That might be a good debate to have, the young blood versus the old blood. But fantasy perspective doesn't care about your Super Bowl rings. But I wanted to ask you here actually about the selection you made in the 9th round, one before your Joe Burrow pick here, Zach Moss in the 9th. And I love that pick, Travi. I want to talk about this from an opportunity and a ceiling perspective. Zach Moss is a great pick because this is a second-year back who disappointed in a lot of categories last year, who split more time with Devin Singletary, who had Josh Allen do his around the goal line thing. But the upside for Zach Moss is the lead back with touchdown upside playing in a cold weather team. That's the upside. So a guy who could be getting the majority of the touches on early down work, has a competitive chance at doing passing down work, and has an edge at being the goal line back. I'm taking that guy 10 times out of 10 over a Kenyon Drake. I'm taking that over a guy whose upside is, as it stands right now, barring anyone getting hurt, is the pass catching back who might get a little bit of work on early down. Yeah, if Josh Jacobs gets hurt, Drake could really be an exceptional piece to have. But unless we're playing the handcuff game, I think we're looking at standalone value right now. Like, I just like the standalone value and the upside of a Zach Moss over somebody like a Drake or a James Conner or even an AJ Dillon. Like, Zach Moss and Leonard Fournette to me actually kind of stand in a different category than Drake, who was taken just a little bit earlier, or Dillon, who was taken a little bit later, or Conner, who was taken a full round earlier. How do you kind of look at evaluating that upside for these players, Travi, at this point in the draft?
Yeah, Fournette for me is tough to I think Fournette is kind of in the same category as Drake. Like, he needs things to happen for him to actually be to be the guy that hits.
He can't just be the lead dog. Like Fournette doesn't come out and bust guts game 1, and now he's the lead back over Ronald Jones.
We saw that. Like, we saw that in week 2 of last year, and then still Ronald Jones got work. Like, that's the thing, is I think they like using both these backs because they're both good at different things. Like, Fournette is fast and like a bruiser, but Ronald Jones is a slasher. Yeah, bust guts. I think that's funny. But I think Ronald Jones does a lot for that team as well. And so I think as long as they both exist, they're going to do things. Whereas Drake needs similar. He needs Josh Jacobs to go away. I think Leonard Fournette needs Ronald Jones to go away for him to be that. So they both kind of have impediments to their value, and that's where I kind of get a little bit.
Is that true, Johnny? Is that true? Can Fournette just not take it?
I think that we forgetting that Leonard Fournette had a high ankle sprain early in the season, and he missed a bunch of games. We thought they were healthy scratches, but turns out it was like a high ankle sprain. And then what we saw was when he came back and then he really started to get worked into this offense, they really leaned on him. So, again, he signed the 1-year contract for him. And so Ronald Jones is on the last year of his rookie deal. So, he's going to be motivated. Once again, it's just, I do think they'll give the first for Leonard Fournette.
I'm not arguing that Fournette's upside isn't higher than Drake's. It clearly is. It's a better offense. He should definitely be drafted ahead of Drake. I agree with that.
Right.
My point is that they both have more in their way. They all three of those guys, Fournette, Drake, and Dillon, have more in their way than a guy like Zach Moss right now. Currently, that was where I was getting at.
Well, the thing is that necessarily true? Because here's the actual here's the picture.
Is this how you bring it full circle for Devin Singletary, right?
No, not Devin Singletary. Hear me out. When you're talking about where is the line of what he has to work through in order to get his potential. Well, you've got a couple of things hindering his upside in Buffalo. Buffalo was one of the first teams last year and one of the only teams last year that had a 60-40 split as far as throwing versus running the ball. And you will probably start seeing that happen more oftentimes than not moving forward in the NFL because it just makes more sense analytically. The second thing,
passing more than running, right? 60% passing, 40% running. And they were one of the only ones to have that wide a divide. 60% to 40% is a lot more passing than throwing compared to the league, right? So
exactly. Usually the league is right around 50-50, or in some cases it will be 55-45, but 60-40 is a significant split. The second thing I want to bring up is, well, he does have the other running mate there in Singletary, although I do agree that Zach Moss is more valuable in my opinion this year than Singletary. But the biggest picture is you've got Josh Allen there that needs to get out of the way. The dude's taking 8 rushing touchdowns a year, and that's bigger than any of the other guys taking. That's like on par with Josh Jacobs. That's on par with what Uncle Lenny could do. So
I know you're making your pick here, and it's important for us to.
Well, Ronald Jones had 7 touchdowns last year, so it's very similar.
Do we think that Josh Allen's propensity to take it over the goal line is going to continue? I mean, or are we going to see a lesson learned from the Cam Newton career timeline where, you did it a lot. And I'm not going to say one reason was what downgraded Cam Newton from a perennial MVP candidate and winner to now a guy who we're scratching our heads when Belichick says he is the starting quarterback. I think a lot of that abuse on the body played into it. Maybe I'm looking at the wrong variables here, but if I'm Buffalo and I'm looking at Josh Allen as my franchise QB who is special, I don't want him doing that stuff. Yeah, I want to score the touchdown for sure. I want to win the game at almost any cost, but if I can get Zach Moss to take it over the goal line versus my franchise QB, I'm going to want to see that happen. Right, Johnny? Isn't that what I would rather see?
Yeah, and I think we had Ian on a few weeks ago, and he talked about that. As Josh Allen gets his major contract, then we could probably see that. But we don't have a new contract. He's heading into that final year. And what do we see typically from quarterbacks going into their contract year? We see that's the year they really start to put up stats because they want to get paid, right? They want to get paid and blow up like the World Trade, to quote Biggie. And so I do think that this year, once again, I think that we could end up seeing at the end of the day that we were just a year early on Zach Moss, and he starts to do that next year, you know, when he's getting paid 200+ million a year, or sorry, not a year. That would be amazing. 250 plus, you know, for his whole contract. And I think that then they're like, okay, we need to protect you a little bit more because we're not just paying you, you know, what we have been paying you on your rookie contract. And so I think that maybe next year they tend to reel that back as far as him rushing. But again, I do like Zach Moss as a late round dart throw because it's such a good value where like the risk is so baked in, and it's like, okay, if we're wrong on Zach Moss, drop him. He's a 9th rounder. We basically start saying like from rounds 10 on, just start taking your dart throws there. So what's one extra round, right? And then like talk about like, you know, and then Travi gets Joe Burrow and Justin Fields in rounds 10 and 12. And it's like, okay, well, like that could in theory be your 9th round quarterback. And then it's like, you're just basically balancing out your roster there. So
that's
do
what
think
I was really
Zach
getting
Moss
to, Johnny. Like
yeah.
that was the point that I really brought up when I asked Travis about his Zach Moss selection, and then the players going running back specifically near that same selection, Kenyon Drake, AJ Dillon. It's like, I don't want a guy on my team who's doing what he's supposed to be doing, and that means I should drop him like a Drake. Like if Drake comes on my squad, Travis, and he's doing what I expect for him to be doing, everybody stays healthy, he's getting the 3rd down work, a little bit of early down work when he's spelling Jacobs. Like I'd rather have a more upside player taking up space on my roster, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's it. And that's what I was trying to like kind of reiterate is that the other guys going around Moss and Fournette, like Fournette does have upside, don't get me wrong. So maybe he doesn't belong in it, but like Drake and Dillon are, you know, going around that time. Like Moss's upside is the number 1 back on that offense. And that, you know, I was trying to get to this, but Johnny did come in like 8 touchdowns for Josh Allen. What if that comes down to 4 or 5? You know, then we're feeling like Zach Moss is in line to get those touchdowns. That increase from 4 to 5 touchdowns, you know. So I think that's what's happening now. Sigmund Bloom likes to say you can't assume rational coaching where, you know, you like you can't assume that's going to happen. But I would agree with you, Austin. I would think that rational coaching is saying, look, we've seen Cam Newton, we've seen and we brought in Stephon Diggs, Emmanuel Sanders, like Cole Beasley is here. Like we want Josh Allen to throw more. We have encouraged that. Throw more. Don't run as much. But in order to win in the NFL, the team has to run a little bit more too, especially when it gets cold. And so I think if those two lines of thinking marry, Zach Moss is definitely league winner potential going in the 9th round as a guy that could end up being your RB2 or your flex for you for the rest of the season, just based on if things kind of change and tilt towards the media. And that's what we see. They were one of the best pass-happy teams. Johnny can attest to this. He builds the projections out. When a team goes from being extremely pass-happy one year, technically they tend to go back to the median a little bit, and they even out in that ratio. And so that's something we could definitely see happen with Buffalo, and I would actually expect that.
Great breakdown there and a great mock draft with y'all, Whisper Nation. We just got through this 13-team 12 or this 13 round 12 team full point PPR mock draft. An honor to do it with y'all. All right.
That's it.
There it is. So Johnny, your selection was
Don Flick, who for I think this is the 2nd week in a row that he's
well done, Don Flick.
Yeah, well done,
Donnie. And then Travi Credit, right?
Yeah, Jake Credit is the winner here.
And I had Turn Off Lakeside there, drafting in the 3 spots. So Whisper Nation, let us know between Turn Off Lakeside, Jay Credit in the 5, and Don Flick there in the 12. Who do you think did the best? Who do you think had the best mock draft? Also, let us know if Johnny or Travis stood out to you. And be sure to drop us any questions that you have. If we don't get to your questions right away, we'll be going back through them over the next couple of days, and we'll be sure to get to everything. If you enjoyed the show and you haven't liked and subscribed, please do so here on YouTube. Follow our Discord link to catch the live mock draft links coming out ahead of time. They come out first for our $5 Patreon subscribers, and then we drop them to the general Whisper Nation universe following that. You can catch those on Discord. You can also catch those on Twitter, which is where they'll come third after all of that. So on behalf of Johnny Game Time Hicks, Big Travi, I'm Austin Sear. Any closing thoughts?
That's it.
Just like and subscribe. Like and subscribe.
We're the Fantasy Whispers. We're out. Peace.
Right here.
Oh, hey, you made it to the end of the video. If you like what you saw and you want to learn how to dominate your own draft and win your own league, head on over to thefantasywhisperers.com and grab your copy of the Fantasy Whisperers Draft Kit today, or click the link in the description below. And if you're still not sold, check out one of these